The Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument in Wiltshire, one of the most recognizable monoliths of the late Neolithic period, built some 5,000 years ago.
A brand new AI-powered 3D scan of Stonehenge has just revealed something no one was supposed to see. For centuries, this ancient monument has stood silent, guarding a mystery that historians, scientists, and archaeologists could never fully explain. But now, using advanced technology, researchers have uncovered hidden details carved deep into the stones. Details that completely change the story of Stonehenge. And what they found isn't just surprising, it's deeply unsettling. Because this discovery suggests that Stonehenge may not be what we thought it was at all. So what exactly did the AI find? And why are experts calling this one of the most haunting discoveries in history? Let's find out what they were told to find and what they actually found. Here is the deal. Stonehenge sits on Salisbury Plain, 88 miles southwest of London, massive stone circle built around 2500 BCE. Sarsen stones standing 30 feet tall, weighing 25 tons each. Blue stones hauled 150 miles from the Preseli Hills in Wales. The official story says Neolithic farmers with antler picks, stone hammers, log rollers, and a whole lot of religious motivation dragged these megaliths into position over centuries. No metal tools, no wheels, no written language, no advanced mathematics. You already know all of that. What you do not know is what happened when a joint British-American research team decided to stop guessing and start scanning. Using ground-penetrating radar, aerial LiDAR, photogrammetry drones, and high-resolution 3D laser scanners, they built a complete digital twin of the entire monument. Every groove, every tool mark, every surface irregularity down to fractions of a millimeter, the standing stones, the buried remnants, the fallen lintels, the landscape stretching miles in every direction. And then they did something no one had ever tried before. They fed all of it, every scan, every measurement, every data point, into advanced neural networks trained to recognize patterns in ancient construction and acoustic engineering. Now, if you are watching this and you find yourself wanting to hear what those algorithms spit back out, do me a favor, hit subscribe. Because this channel is where we break down exactly the kind of discoveries that nobody else is talking about. Trust me, you are going to want to be here for what comes next, because what that AI decoded inside those stones did not just surprise the team, it terrified them. The tool marks that shouldn't exist under microscopic analysis and three-dimensional surface reconstruction. The AI identified at least 5 distinct working techniques used to shape the Sarsen stones. The first was exactly what you would expect, pecking and grinding with stone standard Neolithic stuff documented at dozens of other prehistoric sites. We associate with the Stone Age curved surfaces with less than 2 millimeters of deviation across spans of 2 meters. Think about that for a second. 2 millimeters over 6.5 feet to form a perfect circle when placed atop the upright shows geometric sophistication that requires precision. But the second technique, that is where the room got uncomfortable. Along specific surfaces of the stones, particularly on the lintels and the tongue and groove joints, the AI found shaping so precise it defies everything. Dr. David Nash at the University of Brighton described the moment bluntly. He said the level of uniformity they found in the Sarsen stones exceeds what anyone would expect from traditional percussion and grinding methods. The curvature of the lintels shows systematic planning and measurement. The AI compared these surface profiles to thousands of known tool signatures from the Neolithic period across Britain. 0 matches, not a single comparable technique from anywhere in the British Isles during this era. The accuracy hints at either a controlled shaping technique we have never discovered or planning and measurement skills that supposedly would not emerge in human civilization for another 2,000 years. Now, skeptics will say that skilled artisans can achieve impressive results through simple trial and error. Dr. Mike Parker Pearson, one of the top Stonehenge researchers at University College London, has argued that we should not mistake practical geometry for theoretical mathematics. The builders were skilled engineers who learned through experience, not mathematicians working from abstract ideas. Fair point, and if precision tool marks were the only anomaly the AI uncovered, maybe that argument would stand, but the precision was only the beginning. Because when the neural network shifted their focus to how sound travels through those stones, a researcher named Dr. Rupert Till at the University of Huddersfield almost fell out of his chair. Stonehenge was never a temple, it was a machine. Dr. Till had spent years examining the acoustic behavior of ancient sites. He had always suspected Stonehenge had sonic qualities, but when the AI completed its acoustic analysis, the data on his screen revealed something far beyond what he had imagined. The algorithm discovered that the exact spacing and shape of the sarsen stones creates a phenomenon known as constructive interference. Sound waves bounce between the stones and strengthen at certain frequencies. The AI recreated what the inside of Stonehenge would have sounded like 4,500 years ago when every stone was standing, and get this: voices, drums, or chanting at frequencies between 95 and 120 hertz, the range of a deep male voice or a large drum would have echoed through the structure with an almost supernatural amplification effect. The stone circle would have thundered. But here is the catch. This acoustic effect was not a lucky accident. The stones had to be placed with extreme precision. Move any single sarsen by even 1 meter and the acoustic properties collapse. The AI calculated the probability of this level of acoustic perfection occurring by random chance. Less than 1 in 10,000. Let that sink in. The builders of Stonehenge understood acoustic engineering principles that would not be formally recorded until the ancient Greeks 2,000 years later. They somehow knew how to place 25-ton megaliths to create cathedral-like sound amplification using nothing but what we call Neolithic technology. Skeptics point out that any circular setup of tall stones will produce some acoustic effects, and that is true, but Dr. Till noted that the Stonehenge effects are not some. They are specific, intentional, optimized for certain frequencies. The difference between a room that happens to echo and a concert hall designed by an engineer. And the acoustics were not even the most unbelievable thing the AI uncovered, because when the algorithms began mapping the geometry of the stone placement, a researcher at the University of Oxford, archaeoastronomer Dr. Gail Higginbottom, saw numbers appear on her screen that made her call the rest of the team into the room. Mathematics that came before mathematics. The AI mapped the exact positions of every stone, both standing and fallen, and examined them for geometric patterns. What it found should not exist. The placement of stones follows mathematical principles that predate known mathematics by thousands of years. Pythagorean triangles, right triangles with sides in the exact ratio of 3 to 4 to 5. The theorem that carries Pythagoras' name would not be formally explained until 500 BCE in ancient Greece. That is 2,000 years after Stonehenge was built. And this was not one accidental triangle. The neural network identified at least 7 distinct Pythagorean relationships built into the monument's layout, in the spacing between stone circles, in the connections between the Aubrey holes and the sarsen circle, in the geometry linking the station stones. 7. It gets even stranger. The AI discovered evidence of precise knowledge of pi. The sarsen circle's diameter and circumference show a relationship of 3.14 to 1, accurate to within 99.7%. For comparison, the ancient Egyptians calculated pi as 3.16. The Babylonians used 3.125. Neolithic Britain, supposedly a land of simple farmers with stone tools, came closer to the true value than either of them. Now, mainstream researchers argue that Pythagorean relationships and approximations of pi can appear naturally from basic geometric construction. Lay out a circle using a rope and a stake, and you will produce these ratios without understanding the math behind them. That is a reasonable counter-argument. But here is where it starts getting really uncomfortable. The AI did not stop at geometry. It recreated the night sky as it would have appeared over Salisbury Plain in 2500 BCE and compared it to the exact positions of stones, buried post holes, and landscape features. Everyone knows Stonehenge aligns with the summer solstice sunrise. Stand at the center on the longest day and the sun rises over the heel stone, famous, recorded for centuries. That alignment is the obvious one, the surface layer. Beneath it, the AI discovered that Stonehenge encodes the 18.6-year lunar cycle, the time it takes for the moon's maximum declination to complete a full oscillation. This is one of the most complex astronomical patterns visible from Earth. You would need to track the moon continuously for nearly 2 decades just to realize the pattern exists. The station stones, 4 stones placed in a rectangle around the main circle, mark the extreme positions of this lunar cycle with remarkable accuracy. The AI calculated that reaching this level of alignment requires decades of systematic astronomical observation and mathematical calculation, knowledge that was supposedly lost until modern astronomy rediscovered it, carved in stone in Neolithic Britain. Trial and error does not explain tracking a cycle that takes 18.6 years to complete. You cannot accidentally discover that with a rope and a stake. And then the team examined the timeline. That is when everything started to unravel. The discovery that shattered everything. This is the finding that keeps researchers awake at night, the one that flips the entire story of human civilization upside down. When the AI studied Stonehenge's construction phases, separating which stones were placed during different periods based on tool marks, weathering patterns, and working methods, it revealed something that challenges every assumption we hold about how societies evolve. The earliest stones show the greatest precision. Read that again. The first Sarsen circle and the trilithons raised around 2500 BCE have the tightest joints, the most advanced shaping, the most accurate astronomical alignments. These are the stones with the impossible acoustic engineering, the hidden Pythagorean geometry, the 18.6-year lunar tracking. Later additions and changes made over the following centuries show steadily declining quality, rougher shaping, wider joints, less accurate alignments. By the final construction phase around 1600 BCE, the work is clearly inferior to the original. This is backwards. The Egyptians built increasingly advanced pyramids over time. The Greeks improved their architecture generation after generation. Every civilization in history gets better at building things the more they practice. But at Stonehenge, the peak came first, followed by a slow centuries-long decline. It is as if the original builders held knowledge and abilities that later generations could not match, as if later builders were preserving traditions and methods they no longer fully understood, as if Stonehenge was not built by people discovering monumental construction for the first time, but by heirs of knowledge who were already losing what they once had. Dr. Nash's team ran the toolmark analysis against more than 50,000 examples of Neolithic stonework from across Europe. The earliest Stonehenge marks appear as statistical outliers. They show characteristics more similar to Bronze Age or even later craftsmanship, despite radiocarbon dates placing them firmly in the Neolithic. This creates a paradox that no one has solved. Either the dating is wrong or the builders had capabilities far beyond what we attribute to their time. But the reverse timeline was not even the final shock, because when the AI shifted its focus to how those stones were physically moved across the landscape, it found evidence that makes the entire transport theory collapse. The weight transport problem just got worse. The Sarsen stones came from quarries about 25 miles north in the Marlborough Downs. The blue stones traveled 150 miles from Wales. Standard archaeology says log rollers, rope, and thousands of laborers. The AI had a problem with that. When the neural networks examined the actual shapes of the stones, they discovered that many Sarsens have knobs, protrusions, and irregular sections that would make them a nightmare to transport using log rollers and sledges. The computer ran thousands of physics simulations. Result, 92% probability that the stones would tip, roll off logs, or jam during transport over rough Neolithic terrain. And yet, the 3D scans show zero transportation damage. The protrusions and carved surfaces are pristine, as sharp and clean as the day they were created. Either the shaping was added after the stones were erected, which seems unlikely given that some decorative elements sit on surfaces nearly impossible to reach once standing, or the builders had transportation methods advanced enough to protect the stones during movement, methods we cannot identify, methods we cannot explain. The blue stones are an even greater mystery. Chemical analysis confirmed they were not randomly taken from one convenient Welsh quarry. The builders traveled across the Preseli Hills, identified particular stones from several different outcrops, and transported only those selected stones 150 miles to Salisbury Plain. Why those particular stones? Some researchers believe they were chosen for their acoustic qualities. Strike them and they ring like bells. But the AI detected something else. When arranged in the exact configuration found at Stonehenge, the blue stones create subtle magnetic anomalies of up to 2 nanoteslas in the local geomagnetic field. Can you imagine Neolithic people choosing stones based on magnetic properties, hauling them 150 miles, and arranging them in a pattern that alters the local magnetic field? Unless they already understood magnetism, how would they even discover this? But the stones and their impossible journey were still not the full story, because buried beneath all of it, the AI discovered something that had been hidden in the ground for 4,500 years. What is buried beneath Stonehenge? When the neural networks processed the ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR data from the surrounding landscape, they detected underground structures that have never been fully excavated. The Aubrey holes, 56 pits in a perfect circle, are well known, but the AI identified at least 200 additional post holes, pits, and buried features forming geometric patterns no human eye had ever noticed. Stonehenge was not a standalone monument. It was the centerpiece of a vast ceremonial landscape stretching across several square miles. Now, this is where it becomes really uncomfortable. When researchers combined the acoustic analysis of the stone circle with the landscape features the AI had mapped, they found something unprecedented. The ridges and valleys surrounding Stonehenge are not entirely natural. Sections of the terrain show evidence of massive earth-moving artificial shaping on a megalithic scale, and those shaped ridges channel sound in very precise directions. If you stood at certain points outside the monument and produced loud sounds, drumming, chanting, horns, the landscape would funnel that sound directly toward the stone circle, and there the sarsen stones would amplify it. The entire landscape functions as a massive acoustic amplification system. To anyone standing inside the circle, it would have sounded like voices of gods were rising from the earth itself. The AI estimated that shaping this landscape would have required moving hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of earth using antler picks and woven baskets. Thousands of people working for decades. And that is just the landscape preparation before a single stone was placed. Why would anyone invest that staggering level of effort unless the monument's exact position was absolutely critical? Unless they were following a master plan that required precise alignments stretching across miles of terrain. And this leads to the question that haunts every researcher who has looked at this data. What were they actually building? Some researchers now propose that Stonehenge was an ancient astronomical computer, a physical calculating device for tracking celestial cycles and predicting eclipses, the stone positions, the sight lines, the buried post holes, all functioning as components of a sophisticated prediction system. This would explain why the monument was maintained and modified for 1,500 years. They were refining and updating the calculations. It would explain why later builders seemed less skilled. They were maintaining a machine they no longer fully understood, but there is a darker interpretation. The 18.6-year lunar cycle that Stonehenge tracks influences tides, which in turn affect climate. Some researchers have linked extreme points in this cycle with historic floods, earthquakes, and severe weather events. The AI detected that Stonehenge's alignments allow observers to predict when these extreme points will happen. Combined with solstice tracking and stellar observations, the monument could have worked as an early warning system for natural disasters. Not a temple for worship, but a survival tool. A permanent record of dangerous astronomical cycles carved into stone so the warnings would last even if the people and their knowledge disappeared. And Stonehenge is not alone. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built 6,000 years earlier, appears to record warnings about cosmic impacts. The Nebra sky disk from Germany tracks celestial events linked to climate changes. Newgrange in Ireland has acoustic properties that rival Stonehenge. Carnac in France has over 3,000 standing stones arranged in complex geometric patterns. What if there was a shared tradition spreading across Neolithic Europe, a body of knowledge about astronomical cycles and their connection to catastrophe, a tradition of building monuments to warn future generations in the only medium that lasts forever, stone? Only about 5% of the Stonehenge site has been fully excavated. The AI has detected underground chambers and passages that have never been opened. There are buried features with geometric patterns we are only beginning to understand. And every year, scanning technology becomes more powerful. Here's what I keep coming back to. The earliest work at Stonehenge is the most advanced. The knowledge did not grow over time, it faded. Whatever culture built that first circle, they were not learning. They were remembering. And eventually, they forgot. Maybe the most shocking thing the AI uncovered inside the Stonehenge mystery is not what ancient people could not do. It is what they could do, what they knew, and what we have spent centuries refusing to notice. So, what do you think? Are we looking at the work of simple farmers who got lucky, or the final traces of something far older and far more advanced than we have ever been willing to accept? Drop your answer in the comments. If this made you rethink what you thought you knew about the ancient world, hit like and subscribe, because next time we are going inside another ancient site where AI scanners found something that should not exist, and that one might be even harder to explain.